Well, I need to ask you this. What is going on in the world? David Icke is writing books. Miley Cyrus is doing weird things on stage. People are getting satanic tattoos from head to toe. There's a gold fringe on the American flag. Does that mean martial law? Henry Macau, PhD, Jewish author, writes a great book. Israel has the only place with great opportunities right now. Sky spraying everywhere. Then I find the Protocols of Zion. What is going on? I'll tell you, there's one great book I read it's written by Fritz Springmeier, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. You need to see this and read this for yourself. Hello, Rick Miracle, with another video. This book review will be about Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. They're about $75 on used book sites now. I think I picked this one up for 25 bucks. There's some for $300 or $400, even $1,000. So if you can find one cheaply, you'll have a rare find. Anyways, Fritz Springmeier was a minister type man who went, a researcher, who went around to churches and other organizations and gave speeches and published books on his research. So I thought what I would do is just read a little bit from this book to emphasize the fact that it's if you can get one and read it, do it. And also the fact that when I write a lot on the press releases on the internet, when I see articles that are obviously bogus, propaganda, lies, deceit, and I mentioned the Illuminati, and a lot of people post comments below my comment and give me a thumbs down, telling me I'm foolish, there's no such thing, and it's my imagination. So I should take a moment at this time to try to explain the Illuminati. And it's not difficult. For, 4,000 years ago, the Hebrews, the Jews, were saved from being slaves in Egypt, and Moses guided them out of Egypt. And on the way, apparently, Moses went up to the mountain, meditated, talked to God, and God gave them a homeland, so is said, in Canaan, which is Palestine later, and then later called Israel. And so then they were there for quite a while, and then they had more turmoil. There was a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom, and there was a lot of infighting and a lot of blasphemy and a lot of sinful behavior, and apparently God punished them. And anyways, it's a complicated story, but they were dispersed, called a diaspora, all over the world, from Argentina, which was a very rich nation, the United States, which was a very rich nation, England, which was a great empire. It used to control Egypt and China. It was called the United Kingdom. And then, of course, Germany in World War II and World War I. Anyways, there's always been a faction of the Illuminati behind all of this. So who are the Illuminati? Fundamentally, they're a secret organization that in 1776, same year that the United States was formed, Adam Weishaupt in Germany contrived a plan to unite all the Masonic lodges worldwide. Of course, there weren't that many in the USA back in 1776. But there were a lot in Europe, in Germany, in France, in England, and other places. And these were Masonic societies, lodges, were actual Masons, or people who worked with their hands and tools and built buildings and stuff like that, canals, whatever. So there was quite and they had a lot of secret knowledge when you do all this brick building and block building and pyramids and churches. There was special secrets and things to make those buildings sturdy. So it was a slight tinge of the occult even in it then, because it was natural secrets, the secrets of nature. So, and then of course we all know about the Middle Ages and the Spanish Inquisition and the burning of witches and all those activities for hundreds and thousands of years. King Solomon in Jerusalem had a magic ring with the six-pointed star on it, which is on the Israel flag right now. And apparently he could call forth demons and he could control them, and that helped increase his power. Apparently the demons from the technology we're at in 2013, they have something called remote viewing. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's part of necessary information to get what's going on in the world right now. So today, in 2013, since after World War II, and since the development of radio and the airplane and electricity, Nikola Tesla, apparently they're able to, like in the Philadelphia experiment, put a lot of microwave transmitters all around the ship and make the ship invisible, which, as in the case of the so-called Philadelphia experiment, popped up miles away. And there was another article I read in a Nexus magazine last year where a man was playing with a Jacob's ladder. That's the thing where there's two poles and the electricity goes up the pole. You've probably seen it on TV. But two metal poles and an arc between them, and it creeps up the pole, and then it creeps up the pole. That's called the Jacob's ladder. Well, anyways, this one particular scientist playing with the Jacob's ladder bent over, and an ink pen fell out of his pocket into the Jacob's ladder, and poof, it reappeared across the room. And then there's another book called The Morning of the Magicians. And there was this one particular author, book writer, in New York who was fascinated by fascinating articles in newspapers across the country of strange anomalies. A whale might pop up in Nebraska in the middle of a cornfield. Numerous, all kinds of, The Morning of the Magicians, look it up. Anyways, just to give you the short story, apparently, and I have an electronic engineering background, technician degree, and worked at the major aerospace company for 10 years. So I am not without knowledge on electricity and electronics and radio frequencies. Anyways, so my theory with the whale in the field in Nebraska and The Morning of the Magicians, a big thick book like this, is that when electricity strikes certain areas, it probably creates that portal effect. And whatever was in that vicinity pops up. Like in the Bermuda Triangle, ships and planes missing. You know, it's an electrical magnetic phenomenon. Anyways, what my point is during World War I and World War II and the Russian Revolution, and even back during the British Empire and the burning of witches, I suspect that the technology has increased even in witchcraft, in communicating with the other dimension. I realize that's hard to fathom. But read the Bible. If you believe the Bible, you don't have to believe all this baloney I am saying. I want you to pause this video and take notes and look this stuff up. These books, The Morning of the Magician. This book. All the books I'm going to talk about. I've been studying for 10 years. If you want to get, all I'm telling you is what I learned. And I didn't use an imagination. I read books. Anyways, the short of the story is, today with the Illuminati, my point was I was trying to tell you who they were. So back in 1776, Adam Mustafa, and probably under the directive of Rothschilds and the other Illuminati, the Bloodlines, this book names all the names of the families, the Rothschilds, the Russell, the Merovingians, the Van Dooms, the Krupps. It's all right here in this book. The Onassis, the Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, chapter after chapter of all these families. And they're all blood related. And they're all into the Satanism activities. And how that happened is that apparently back in Jesus' time, these people believe that Jesus had a brother, Lucifer. And this was probably prior to when Jesus came to earth, maybe back when God created man, as in Adam and Eve in the Bible, and the story of God sending Sataniel to earth that I told you about. And he was lonely, so God made Eve. This is in the Rosicrucian material, that Abraham Lincoln was the United States national representative and leader of the Rosicrucian Society, which is another satanic occultic group. And so they all had all these magic and occultic symbolisms, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the secret handshakes, the Masonic lodges. So when Adam Weishaupt created the Illuminati under the direction of the Rothschilds and the rest of the Illuminati, the people at the top of the pyramid, they united all the lodges and they expanded and made new lodges, and there were lodges in every city, in your city. I'm sure they have a Masonic lodge in your bigger cities, Philadelphia, and New York, and Chicago. Now they have almost skyscraper type lodges. So that's who the Illuminati is. It's just a group of families that think they're descendants of Lucifer. Like, you know, there's other things we've seen on TV where people believe they're descendants of Jesus. You know, TV shows with Tom Hanks. And anyways, Nicolas Cage did a movie about the treasure they found. So they make a lot of interesting, you know, adventure movies. But behind all that, there's some truth. And the books are available. Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, this book and other books, and the books I've been reviewing for you. So again, I'll try to speed this up before I read this. The Illuminati is nothing more than these families that have been ruling the planet for 1,000 years, 2,000 years. These were the kings and queens and other powerful people that intermarry with each other. They call them blue bloods. And they had magicians, the King of England, the Queen of England, all these people always had their magicians. These were the experts at the occultic. And a lot of citizenries were into witchcraft or occult or magic or soothsaying, prophesizing. And now and then the Catholic Church or whatever institutions would declare that it was evil, and people would be rounded up and burned at the stake. Everybody knows this. Come on. So we know all this. Okay, so who's the Illuminati? The Illuminati are these bloodlines throughout the ages, the Collins, the Kennedys, Lai, Onassis, Rockefeller. I'm reading the book here. And I highlighted stuff. I read this whole book through. All these books I talked to you about, I read through. Over 100 books. So the Illuminati is basically the people who run the banks, the Rockefeller family. And when they, in 1913, they bribed the president at the time during the Christmas holiday and created the Federal Reserve, which is not owned by the USA or controlled by the USA. It's controlled by the world banksters, the Illuminati. Okay, the Illuminati back then in 1776 conspired to try to control the world. Right out of a movie, you know. Anyways, what they did is has always been the Jewish desire to have a homeland, and the Jews were dispersed all over the world. And a lot of the Jewish folks were not godly. They had turned to Satan. They were into the Kabbalah. They were into magic, and they were bad Jews were scheming and conniving, and the banksters or bookkeepers or financiers of even the Vatican. I've read books, and I'm going to go over that with you. So these people had a history of just wherever they went, they actually didn't plow the field or work in the iron mill or the clothing factory. They always made money off of it. They were the brokers that made money off of people. They were the people who started the stock exchange. So here you have the people desiring, the Hebrew Jews who turned away from God, who wanted to go back to Israel, because everywhere they went for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, they were run out of, they were murdered. You have to wonder what they did to make everybody so mad everywhere they went. So here's the two factions we have that I think are actually one faction. The Rothschilds were Zionist Jewish people also. So which came first, the horse or the cart? The Illuminati or the Zionists, or the Zionists or the Illuminati? They are one. All right, the Illuminati out of the Bank of England conspired to get the Federal Reserve financial control of the wealthy USA in 1913. A year later, they started World War I from 1914 to 1916, and they used that to also change the world, and make a lot of money off of the armory, which they did even through the Crusades. These people, these Jewish people in Vienna, Italy, they were called the people who handled all the trade, all the supplies for the 8 Crusades that went to Israel 8 times and slaughtered everybody, and then were eventually slaughtered themselves and chased back to England and Europe and France. And they, over 300 years, 8 times this happened. So anyways, these Jewish people in Vienna were the brokers again, and they were always supplying the food and the clothing and the weapons from 1000 AD to 1300 AD. So it's just so interesting about the history of this. So anyways, who are the Illuminati? The Illuminati are the Zionists. The Zionists are the Illuminati. And if you go on the computer and you look up Illuminati and photos, you'll find that website I talk about all the time. That says the Yahoo Images website. And just do a slideshow on the Illuminati photos, and then do one on the Zionist photo search, and get the photo Yahoo image website, and do a slideshow, and you will see clearly the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, all the occultic symbols, swatch stickers, the lions with wings. You'll see all of it, and it's all out of Egypt. If you go back far enough, this is where Moses brought the Hebrews out of. A lot of those Hebrews, while they were in Egypt, Egypt was a pagan religion that worshipped the sun and other images, the owl or the cow, Moloch, the demon Moloch. A lot of the Hebrews that were there before they were guided out of Egypt had learned the pagan occultic religion of Babylon and Egypt and the Pharaoh. You ever see the movie with Moses and throws down his cane? I mean, first the Pharaoh throws down 2 canes and they turn into snakes, and then Moses throws down his 1 cane, turns into a bigger snake, and eats the Pharaoh's 2 snakes. Occultic magic, maybe? Is it that powerful? Manifestation? If you read The Morning of the Magicians and you see that lightning in the ocean can put, I guess, a whale through a portal and wind up in a field in Nebraska, and that today they're into the black ops programs with the secret agencies, putting people in chairs like a cockpit chair in a plane and putting them in a hypnotic state, and they're leaving their body and they're spying on people. And apparently they've tuned that skill up to a great degree, where even now they have those microwave transmitters in the HAARP system in Alaska that can invade people's human systems, our bodies, and kill us, make us happy, make us sad, give us cancer. Look at President Chavez of Venezuela. He wasn't stupid. He had scientists, he had people there. And he knew that they could take this and bathe anybody in microwaves. And this all was discovered, incidentally, in Russia, in Moscow, when the USA Embassy, the people there were getting cancer and bleeding in the ears and bleeding in the nose. And the Russians said, we have a weapon, and they called it the woodpecker. And what it did, it blasted microwave pulses at the embassy from the building next door. And so the USA finally got a handle on it and developed their own high technology, magnetic radiation, other higher systems of computers and all that, and studied the human body and how to modulate signals so people would hear voices and think it was themselves or think it was God. This technology is real today. And if they did all the wars in the past, and they did all the Russian Revolution and killed 66 million, and World War I and World War II, the technology is ever increasing. Heck, only 100 years ago did we start having the radio and TV and cars. 100 years ago. So where are they now? And have they advanced with the occultic magic that Hitler was into? And why have they made a predetermined decision to enforce the issue of removing God and Jesus from the schools and society? They know what they're doing, and we need to know what they're doing and how we can fight this. The other dimension with God and Lucifer and demons and people, like in the Bible, Jesus cast out spirits. It's real. This is where the aliens are coming from. If you read the descriptions of the Greys or the reptilians, need I say any more? The snake in the garden of Adam and Eve was a snake. A snake is a reptilian. So the reptilians, basically some manifestation of a being from the other side, that apparently if they drink blood, which is plasma, they're able to maintain a human form, and there are several degrees of it, to the point where they actually interbred with humans, and they have a hybrid called blue bloods. These people, according to David Icke and many other people, these people are specially bred people from the occultic world, reptilians from the other side, and they're going through great lengths to try to live in our dimension, and they have to consume blood and other materials and change our world. And they do the opposite of God's laws. They feed on fear and hatred and thirst for blood and pedophilia and other sexual depravities. All throughout the history, these people have been in these situations and pursued these things and made people upset and were driven out of town. So that's who the Illuminati are. They're basically the same people as the Zionists. They're into the occult. They may or may not be a specially bred breed of people mixed with the satanic reptilian race. I don't know. But we're all seeing the UFO stuff in the news. And they are opening the portals according to the Philadelphia experiment, which you can look up online. And there's even a video on YouTube for free. And there's books. There's people who confessed. There's Project Montauk from Montauk Island in Long Island. MK Ultra. There's many of these super fantastic, high-tech, mind control, leave your body, other types of satanic rituals going on, and science, that the people have been denied knowledge of this. So let me just read a little bit about Bloodline of the Illuminati, and you decide. You know, I'm just doing my job by reporting. Abraham Lincoln was the head of all the Rosicrucians in the U.S. Look up Rosicrucians and photos, and you'll see. They're right there with the Illuminati, right there with the Satanists, right there with the Zionists. You just do a slideshow on each one. What I would do and what I did is I copied the photos from each one of these sites onto my computer, and I took them down to the pharmacy, and then I printed them out, so when you see them on my videos, that's where I got them. Just printed them all out, and the evidence was right there. The all-seeing eye was in the Rosicrucians, was in the Satanism, was in the Illuminati, was in the Zionism. Why are they all using the all-seeing eye? Abraham Lincoln was head of all the Rosicrucians in the U.S. He was a member of the Order of the Lily, which uses its logo, the Merovingian fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis is a three-petaled flower. And if you want to see what it looks like, just look up the Boy Scouts website. Their symbol is the fleur-de-lis. And then you're going to say, aha, Rick, I see that everywhere. Duh. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Go to American Idol, and you'll see the big all-seeing eye in the background. Watch NFL football. See the all-seeing eye convention. Watch CBS TV. See the big all-seeing eye. God, everywhere you go, you're going to see it. Okay, here's another one we'll read here. The Kennedy family. I'm just a guide here. I'm just reporting what I'm reading. I'm not making stuff up. You've got to take the initiative and look this stuff up. You don't have to spend a lot of money. A lot of it's on the internet. You know, buy a couple ink cartridges, print some stuff up, buy a binder, punch some holes, and make your own book. And go show your friends. So the Kennedys, again, the ties between the various Illuminati families is very involved in a long unraveling process similar to untying a set of bad knots confronts the researcher. The Kennedy family abounds with marriages of names such as the Ancatels, the Baileys, the Booths, the Buckleys, the Collinses, the Hatfields, the Humphreys, the Freemans, the James, the Phelps, the Reagans, the Russells, the Smiths. As I say, these people, to keep up, and by the way, the truer they are, according to what I'm researching, to this strain of genetic manipulation from the reptilian strain. Apparently, the purer they keep the bloodline, the more that they have a manifestation or the ability to use their psychic abilities. That's interesting. Reading minds, moving things, psychic abilities. The Kennedys that we will take a closer look at are related to the Fitzpatricks, a powerful Irish family whose coat of arms has 3 fleur-de-lis with a dragon and a lion. So there you go. This is just a fascinating read. I could go on and on and on, but I just want to move on and do this book quickly. I've been giving you a lot of information on this video, and as I said on my previous videos, these videos I'm doing are going to get more exciting, but I had to take you up step and step and not lose you, telling you this stuff way up front without some background information. You just wouldn't get it. I didn't get it. Maybe you're smarter than me and you'll get it quicker. That would be great. We could save the planet together. The Holy Book of Hitler explains why this Theosophical Society, I have a speech impediment if you can't tell. Certain words I have difficulty saying. Theosophical Society worked so hard to destroy the British Empire. Remember, the British Empire used to encompass quite a bit of the world, including India and a lot of other places. I mean, they had a good grip on a good portion of South Africa. And anyways, apparently the Illuminati had to stop that because they had a bigger game for their own control, and as the size of what the British Empire was standing in the way of their control. So why they worked so hard to destroy the British Empire? At first it mystified me why the society presidents who were connected to the satanic hierarchy would want to ruin the British Empire. The reason it seems strange is that the mother country of Satanism and witchcraft is Great Britain, the center of secret political power geographically in England. And further, one of the largest and most powerful secret fronts for Satanism is British Israelism. Israelism, if you don't know, there is a magnetic grid line all over the world called the World Grid. And this is where they built a lot of these buildings. They could trace that through the grid lines, these holy or historic temples were built on these grid lines. Well, apparently where Jerusalem is and King Solomon's temple is a major grid line energy point. So when they do open these portals or communicate with the demons or entities on the other side, they probably do better on these grid line interconnections, where they cross each other and create vortexes. My research, like I said, the stuff we'll get into later in my other books goes into the insane fantasy land. But I'm not the one who wrote the books. When I started researching, it surprised me to the point that I had to walk away from this stuff a dozen times and say, this is too crazy. But if it's true, we need to know. The reason why the British Empire was destroyed was that Satan had determined prior to 1870, remember 1776 they created the Illuminati with all the lodges, Adam Wushta, which 1776 was the same year they created the United States. In Washington, D.C., from the photos I showed you, looks like a big owl, or the Capitol building. And then the Alex Jones video where Alex Jones snuck into the Bohemian Grove, where all the presidents have been, and other leaders have been photographed. And they have the big cremation of care with the owl and the big fire where they throw a baby into the fire. All satanic. They have human sacrifices all over the planet. And they've been doing it all over the world throughout history. Shamanism down in Mexico and the Mayans and all the other religions document this. So these portals, these demonic entries, are communications. And apparently there was a lot of good done. You know, there's white witches, I suppose, and black witches. But shamans in Peru, for example, if somebody was sick, they would take some huasca, however you pronounce it. It was a vine, like the American Indians use peyote. And of course over there in Afghanistan they use opium. Anyways, the Peruvians, whenever somebody would be ill or kind of problem like that, the shamans would take some of that, go into trance, go to the demonic world, get the remedy how to cure the person, come back, go scoop up a couple flowers that they were told to do by the demonic world, and feed it to the ill person, and they would get well. So there were apparently the technology and the communication. And so that's why we look at God's world and God's word when he sent Jesus and other religions. And Moses was that 2,000 years before Jesus, and he was given the Hebrews a helping hand and guidance and the 10 Commandments in stone. And when he went up to the mountain to meditate and he came back and they were having the big fire like at the Bohemian Grove with the American politicians and tossing a baby on the fire, the Hebrews were having a big party and sex and drunkenness under the cow, the bull, Moloch. It's funny how all this stuff matches. So the reason why the British Empire was destroyed was that Satan had determined prior to 1870 that the steps of world government would include setting up 9 or 10 continental blocks. So they have a pre-arranged plan of having 9 or 10 blocks. In the United States, it's the American Union, Canada, the USA, and Mexico. Look it up on the computer. You'll find it. You'll see the maps. European Union. I'm going to get into that. The leader of that, what was his name? Minot. If you plug his name into the 666 calculator at 666. Gingrich's last name is really McPherson, which is 666. Kissinger is 666. The CEO of Google is 666. Computer is 666. Look this stuff up on the internet. Look up 666 calculator and plug things in there that you think that should be evil. You know, like the microchip, Verichip, 666. Yep. Santa Claus, 666. Yep. Guy in a red suit, devil, get it? They were fooling everybody. You know, Christmas, you know, all the people had trees and Santa Claus. It was a pagan thing. They were deceiving the people. And they were making a bunch of money off of toys and stuff. The reason why the British Empire was destroyed was that Satan had determined prior to 1870 that the steps of world government would include setting up around 9 or 10 continental blocks, the union of Europe in one country, and could not be accomplished while Great Britain had most of her focus on her empire. So Great Britain wouldn't have complied and become part of the European Union while it already owned half the world. Would it? Would you? No. As long as Great Britain had an empire, she'd never want to join up with Europe. Huh. So anyways, I'm going to move on to this thing. And again, I encourage you to look this stuff up. Don't believe me, please. You're not helping me by just believing me, but you're helping us all if you pause when you see something I say and write down the name and write down this and go to those photo websites and look at some videos on YouTube and order some books on used book sites for $1 or $2 that I mentioned. Heck, you might find this book for $30. Might be worth $500 a year from now. May never be able to get it. Anyways, these are the House of David, the prominent bloodlines which are connected to witchcraft and the mystery religions. They want to keep power by dynastic intermarriage. In other words, they have to marry within the families. You know, even Carrie just married, or not just, but married into one of these blue blood families. The Bush's background. All the presidents, largely, can be connected to the King of England, or the King of Spain, or the King of France. This is in Fritz Springmeier's book. He traced the family tree. And President Roosevelt said, presidents are not elected, presidents are selected. So using the polling and propaganda, and generally speaking, if either candidate were to win, either one was probably okay and related by blood to the blue bloods. For instance, the Rothschilds bloodline, which secretly claims blood descent from Nimrod, works with the Merovingians, such as Habsburgs, and the black nobility, such as the House of Orange. Isn't that the gang that is the King and Queen of England? And other prominent bloodlines, such as the Collins family. Recently, soap opera Dark Shadows began again. Dark Shadows is a TV soap opera that is loosely based on the Collins family actual history. And I notice now that I know what I know, and I watch Star Trek, or I watch the old version of Battlestar Galactica. You know, I don't do this stuff all the time. I sit back and watch something I enjoy, like sci-fi, and have a couple cold beers, and I'm watching Battlestar Galactica, and I'm seeing the occultic possession, all the stuff that Gene Roddenberry said in one of the videos, or was said about him, that he said to somebody who was a researcher, that he went into trances and got the theme line for his shows from the demonic world. So I'm watching Battlestar Galactica, and I said, can this be so? And I see the symbolism all the time. I'm learning the symbolism so well, I could be called a symbolicist, I guess. Funny word there. But I'm beginning to be able to recognize this stuff really good. And so will you if you go on the photo and do the slideshows and print the stuff up, make a little notebook. It'll blow you away. Fascinating material. The symbols of the Merovingians, Virginians, include the Knights Templar. Look up Knights Templar and photos. You will see what I'm saying. Look up the King of England and photos. With their red crosses and fleur-de-lis. The Boy Scouts have the fleur-de-lis. The Kennedys use the fleur-de-lis. What's going on here, I ask? Symbolic bees. You'll see the beehive everywhere. Solomon's Temple, King Arthur, Grail legends, and the name Arcadia with its bear. The bloodlines believe it is divine blood and it is from the House of David. King Solomon was in the House of David. He's the one with the magic ring with the 6 stars, which is now on the flag of Israel. He could call forth demons and enslave them and use them for his power. Within the Illuminati rituals, they emphasize that the 13 bloodline is that they are the seed of Satan. It's in the book. This guy was a minister. And they set Fritz Springmeier up, and they convicted him for a bank robbery, by the way. And he was spent several years in jail, and he got out. I mean, they knew he wasn't a criminal. And you can go on YouTube and put Fritz Springmeier and see some of his videos for free. And it's just fascinating. I do caution you, though, once you start poking your nose into this, you won't be able to put it down. It's fascinating. But on the other hand, you may be helping to save your family and the world and everything, our whole reality. If these guys win, it's not going to be good. As their story goes, they are direct descendants of Jesus' spiritual brother, Lucifer. Both the Freeman family and the Rothschild family have members who are also in the 13th bloodline. So I did look up Jesus in the 666 calculator, and he's 444. And I looked up Lucifer, or Satan, whichever it was, Lucifer, and he was 444. So this book says they were brothers. I don't know. I'm just one of those guys that looks stuff up. One attempt to trace the seed of Satan was by Eustace Mullins. He wrote books on his extensive research on the tribe of Dan and the descendants of Cain. Remember I said the story of Cain was when Lucifer was put on the earth, he was alone, so that God made Eve, and they had a child named Cain. And Lucifer skedaddled, went back probably to the demonic higher world. He was bored with planet Earth and Eve, and left his son Cain. So God felt sorry for Eve and created Adam, and they had a son named Abel. And if you know your biblical history, you knew that Cain slew Abel. And then Adam and Eve had another son, Cain and Abel. What was the other? They had another son, so the descendants of mankind come, according to that theory, from the second son that Adam and Eve had. Look it up, don't believe me. And the other descendants are from Cain, who slew Abel. And just interesting. And I read all that in the Rosicrucian manual several years ago. That's where I learned that Abraham Lincoln was the leader. And it's like Kennedy. You can't get in to be president of the United States without being in the inside. But some people have a sense of conscience that comes over to them when they get powerful. And they have this thing where they want to do the right thing instead of just seeking power. Because once you have power and you don't seek it anymore, you might seek a consciousness and say, hey, I better do what God said is the right thing. And as soon as they exhibit those characteristics, they get assassinated. Which, according to what I read in that other book that we looked at from Henry Ford, the International Jew, on the Dearborn independent newspaper that Henry Ford owned, it said in there from the guy who wrote the letter from over there near Russia to a friend in Dakota, that even somebody sitting high up on the bench ruling that the crowds of people brought before him were executed, if they showed any type of compassion, they could be hauled off the bench and their family and wife, and they were all killed. So you had to be worried. You had to be vicious. If you weren't vicious, they would get you. The satanic stuff is not good, in my opinion. What do you think? Anyways, one attempt to trace the seed of Satan was by Eustace Mullins. He wrote books on his extensive research on the tribe of Dan and the descendants of Cain. Mullins, The Curse of Canaan. That's the name of the book. You can look it up on abooks.com, used book site or others. And for 2 or 3 books, you get The Curse of Canaan. Read the stuff for yourself. It's an interesting book along with its mate, World Order. It's another book, World Order. And maybe Eustace Mullins, E-U-S-T-A-C-E, Mullins, M-U-L-L-I-N-S, wrote that, World Order. Besides the thread that Mullins researched, there were a number of others. One of the books which I looked with difficulty for before finding it was Gerald Macy's A Book of the Beginning, University Books, 1974. A Book of the Beginning by Gerald Macy. So that's why I have these I have about 1,000 books, and I've read about 150, I think. But verifiable, I always say 100, because I forget what I read 10 years ago. I have to go back and review them. Anyways, the book goes in and shows in detail how the inhabitants of the British Isles originally came from Egypt. There we go again, Sodom and Gomorrah, the Pharaoh, the pagan religion, the sun god, Cyrus, Osiris, Ra, Baal, it's a demon, Moloch, all the place where the Hebrews were saved by Moses to, escorted out of there. This is important because, as the author has contended in earlier writings, the Druids, it's another occultic thing, Druidism, is of the British Isles, It was simply a derivative from the Egyptian satanic witchcraft magic of ancient Egypt, the pharaoh, the hieroglyphics that we see, the tombs, the mummies, the daddies. I'm joking. That was funny. Daddies. I have a sense of humor too, you know. Well, the mummies and the big pyramids they built and all the gold they hid. There's another interesting story. In the Grand Canyon, some old prospector stumbled across a cave. And inside was a whole treasure that apparently came from Egypt. Like they found in King Tut's tomb. And the interesting part of this story is, one, how did it get in the cave in the Grand Canyon, USA? And two, as soon as the word got out, the Smithsonian Institute flew in there like flies, confiscated the materials, shut everybody up, and the gold statues and everything disappeared. You say, oh, well, okay, Rick, what's with that? Well, I am here to tell you from my research, the Smithsonian Institute, every time something is found that's related to this throughout the world for hundreds of years, I guess are the black ops arm of the government, or who's ever in charge, the Illuminati, and they confiscate this stuff and even probably have to kill people to shut them up if they won't shut up. And one of those issues that's interesting is a book called Giants. I'll think of the guy's name in a minute. That was recently published, a big thick book like this, and every time they find a 16-foot giant in the world, Smithsonian people fly in, grab the skeleton, throw dynamite in the hole, and shut everybody up. They found thousands of these 16, 30-foot human skeletons with 5 guys standing around a head the size of a washing machine. You never see it. What are they hiding? I'll have to remember the author of that book. Look up Giants. It's a new book. The 3 studies, and we'll be going over that book. I have that book. I read that book, Giants. 3 studies were made by the elite to determine that a population explosion was threatening the Earth. So they fabricated, in my opinion, these studies so they could do this New World Order, Agenda 21, Common Purpose in England, and try to enslave everybody and tell everybody to be more frugal and actually start poisoning people with sky spraying and HAARP and mercury in vaccines and telling people to be, well, they were sterilizing women all over the world without their being told. Was threatening the Earth, according to William Cooper in Behold the Pale Horse. I read his book too. William Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse. Fascinating. We'll be going over that book. I read a lot of books. The first, they made 3 studies to determine that there was an overpopulation. They needed some background research so they could implement their laws when they go to their big events and hearings and congressional meetings. They throw these reports down and say, this is why we need to do it. When they paid the scientists huge amounts of money to make the reports come out the way they wanted them. That's a mouthful. The first was during World War II, the second at Huntsville, Alabama, in 1957, and the third by the Club of Rome ending in 1968. Well, these are 3 very suspicious places to make these reports that there's an overpopulation amount of people on the earth. Meeting of the elite. All 3 studies concluded that the population growth must be curtailed. So they wrote their own reports that they wanted to kill everybody or curtail it. In Georgia, there's something, Georgia, USA, there's something called the Georgia Guidestones. It says they want to reduce the population to 500 million and maintain it. It's 7 billion now. So 6 billion and 500 million need to be eliminated. Will they do that with World War III? Is that what's coming to a neighborhood but near you? Is that why they're trying to take the guns from the USA people? Don't give up your gun and don't get in the truck to the FEMA camp when you're hungry. The last thing you're going to do is get fed. Or it might be your last meal. little cup of rice. But then it'll be leaking out of you with the bullet holes. I'm just telling you what I learned. 150 books in 10 years. Russia revolution should be an example to all of us. World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, Korea War. Iraq, what, twice the 3 times they attacked it? Afghanistan, Russians did it, USA did it. Syria, gosh, during the Crusades they were wiping out Syria. Back 100 years ago in Henry Ford's book, they were over there dealing with Syria. Now they're dealing with Syria. Argentina used to be the wealthiest country on the USA. Not in the USA, but in the Americas. Argentina. I guess the joke was, I heard Alex Jones say that today. To be rich as an Argentinian was the joke. Well, there was a lot of Jewish folks in Argentina, and they didn't want to leave that beautiful place with all that money. Well, they did leave because they brought on an economic crisis. They made life so horrible the Jews would go to Israel. They did that all over the world, by the way. That's why we're in economic crises everywhere. It's called the return, the Aliyah. Look it up at thejpost.com, Aliyah. You'll see there's a whole section there to getting everybody to move back to Israel. The return is what they call it. Remember, there was the Exodus thousands of years ago. Now there's something called the return. And once the return is all done, we're all toast. There won't be any Jews left here in the USA that they care about, and they can fumigate and exterminate everybody without fear of killing their own. That's what the research shows. That's not what I said. I'm quoting the stuff I read. All 3 studies concluded that population growth must be curtailed. In a 1992 meeting of the elite, George Hunt obtained a handout which shows that the elite are committed to stopping the population growth by any means available. They need to explain to you what's going on in the United States right now, why they're even cutting off the food stamps of the poor lately, and they're having mini riots. They're testing the water. They know what's going to happen when they cut the food off everywhere. You try going hungry for a couple days, you'll do some crazy things. I guess anybody would. That's what they're banking on. It's all intentional. Okay, Hunt obtained a handout which shows that the elite are committed to stopping the population growth by any means available. Years earlier, Illuminatist Dr. Aurelio Pecci, P-E-C-C-I-E, advocated a plague similar to the Black Plague, and when the idea was developed, it became the AIDS epidemic. Yeah, Nixon and Kissinger were in on that with the pharmaceutical companies at Fort Detrick in Maryland and Ohio. And it took them years to mixing all these concoction of bird flus and swine flus and other different flus and toxins and mercury to get something that they could inject in people or spread around that wouldn't kick in for 10 years. So let's say in 1980 you wanted to kill 1 million people. You would inject everybody in 1970, and then 1980, 1 million people would start dropping. What an insidious, evil mindset these people have. Dr. Wolf, Pope John Paul X's ex-roommate, was one of the masterminds behind the AIDS epidemic. Dr. Wolf, S-Z-M-U-N-E-S-S. Page 432 on this book. So, further, they have a vested interest and a moral need to believe in the overpopulation lie. It's all a lie. The global warming's a lie. 9/11 was a lie. The Oklahoma City bombing was a lie. We're going to go over that book. The Batman movie shooting. The guy was on drugs. He was seeing a psychiatrist. He was under mind control. Sandy Hook School. Mind control. Satanic symbolism. That one TV anchor comes out there showing a big picture of the owl that I showed you. Boston bombing. 66 Boylston Street. When are you going to get it? Probably as long as it took me, 10 years, huh? Okay, so when she told her son on her deathbed that she was the daughter of William Randolph Hearst and movie star Marion Davis. Who's this? Recently, the death of Patricia Van Cleve Lake opened up some more clues about the Van Dunes. So she was on her deathbed and she made some confessions here. It's in this book. And then first, Hertz, who funded Billy Graham's first 3 years of crusades, was part of the Illuminati. Billy Graham's first 3 crusades were financed by the Illuminati. Wonder what kind of brainwashing they were trying to do to people. Second, the Illuminati often adopt out their children to hide their paternity. Like I said, Newt Gingrich's real name is McPherson. He was adopted out. McPherson is 666 in the 666 calculator. Think he had to get a name change? To hide their paternity and ancestry. Clinton was adopted. A lot of them, they have to do this. A lot of, in Henry Ford's book, we're going to go over many of the Jewish people to hide their Jewish name because it wouldn't go well with the local pharmacy or other business. They changed them to English names. The Van Clyve family is linked to the Van Dunes, which raises the possibility of links between the Hertz and the Van Dunes. Here's an interesting thing I saw in the news today about UNESCO, is used to push an NGO, New World Order, education agenda of the world. And that agenda, of course, is to believe there's no God. And then they have huge membership list in this book. I don't know if you can see it. This is how the membership lists are. Look at all the list. Names and names and names and names of people and families. Organizations, Masonic groups. So there you have it. And I thought what I wanted to do before I ended this is read this. A summary of the 10 Commandments. And then you decide after this. You shall have no other gods before me. So this is God's word, not the pagan world where they're talking to all the demons. You shall not have any graven images. The all-seeing eye, I suppose, and all the pyramids and all the things are graven images. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. And remember the Sabbath. Sabbath is the 7th day, which is Saturday? Sunday's the first day. Honor thy father and mother. Do not murder. They're murdering all over the world. Do not commit adultery. Come on. All the TV shows, and 2.5 Men with a different girl every night. Even yesterday's show, I watch it, I liked it. But still, I can tell the difference when I watch the propaganda. A lot of people just think life is normal the way Charlie shows it to be. And that's the mind control portion of it. But it doesn't work on me. I wouldn't sleep with a married woman to save my life. Knowingly, of course. I mean, if somebody deceived me, what am I going to do? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet. Well, they're certainly coveting all the oil fields all over the world. And the reason I read the 10 Commandments, because I want to read to you a summary of the Communist Manifesto, the Illuminati's commandments. I like that. Abolish of private property. The communists do not want you to own everything. In the United States, they're working towards that like there's no tomorrow. People are losing their homes and losing everything and all their wealth really fast. And they even have a commandment in the manifesto that helps them, is their guide to justify where they're doing it. Heavy progressive income tax. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. I guess you know they don't want anybody not inside their satanic bloodline. They intermarry to keep their inheritance. They don't want you to do that. Confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. I guess at this point I'm going to be declassified as a rebel. They don't want people telling the truth. In a country of lies, truth is treason. I stole that. Truth is treason in a country of lies. They want a central bank. Well, they did the Federal Reserve in 1913. Government control of communications and transportation. government ownership of factories and agriculture, government control of labor, corporate farms and regional planning, government control of education. Summary of the Communist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto represents a misguided philosophy which teaches the citizens to give up their rights for the sake of the common good, but it always ends up in a police state. This is called preventative justice. Control is the key concept. We already went over this book, but I'm going to be referencing it a couple more times. So these people here are changing and trying to eliminate God and the Constitution from the United States. And I thought I'd just do my regular little routine. Is this what's going to happen? 911 was the kickoff. And you can see on this particular chart, up there in the corner right there is the tiny state of Israel. But look at the boundary now, how big it is. All around Syria, Afghanistan. Look, it's a snake there. Lucifer's a snake. I just got these on Zionism photos online, like I keep telling you. Protocols of Zion has been published over the years, for 100 years. There's an old edition. Instead of a Christmas tree or Santa Claus or Christian stuff, they now have a gigantic statue of this at the White House for Christmas this year. This is called the menorah. This is a Jewish religious symbol. Another edition of the Protocols of Zion. I tell you to look it up online. It's free. This is the goal. Many Jews, some guy emailed me today and on one of my blogs replied and said, I hated Jews. I don't hate Jews. I don't like the people who are worshiping Lucifer. Is that going to be a hate crime? Not to like the devil? Throw kids into the Barbie, the fire? There's many Jews out there exposing this. We went over the book. Henry McCow's and Rabbi Engelman's, and I've read other books. 99% of the politicians, or the people supporting the politicians, are Jewish and USA citizens. All these guys are. Dual Israeli citizens, or Jewish people. 1% of the population rules 100% of the country. The federal buildings, there's the all-seeing eye over there. On there, this side here. On a federal building, the post office in Rockport, Maine. The churches, like we just saw, and we read about in the other book that the Illuminati financed Billy Graham's crusade. This is what we can expect, folks, if we don't wake up. People think it's funny, and everybody's told to shut up. And I'm not suicidal, so if they say I killed myself next week, they're lying. They did it. Israel starts out over here as just a little bit of land, and then it grows, and then it grows to where it is here. And now we saw that picture of the even 100 times larger. They have control of our White House. This guy was in on it. Winston Churchill, what did he say? Listen to this. It is manifestly right that the scattered Jews, rich Jews all over the world, Argentina, should have a national center and a national home. Well, I call it headquarters for ruling the world. He can sugarcoat it all he wants. And where else but in Palestine, for which for 3,000 years they have been intimately and profoundly associated. So make no mistake about it, since they left Egypt, and there's the cow they're worshiping, and they're dancing and drinking, and Moses went up to talk to God. What a holy moment. I mean, think about it. They prayed to be released from slavery in Egypt, from the Pharaoh. God makes lightning bolts and plagues and all the 7 catastrophes that happened when Moses was there. and got them out. You think they would be thankful to God? As soon as Moses went up to the mountain to meditate, turned his back, they got the cow out, and they're doing the pagan religion they did back in Egypt. And here's the guy in charge. Just saying. And I was going to read some of this, but I'll do this book. Just one little thing I'll read from William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. Thought this was interesting. This is how they're going to enforce this New World Order. The men of the household must be housebroken to ensure that Junior, that means the kids, will grow up with the right social training and attitudes. So the man must be housebroken. The American man must be made to a weakling. The advertising media, etc., are engaged to see to it that the father-to-be is whipped before or by the time he is married. He is taught that he either conforms to the social notch cut out for him, or his sex life will be hobbled and his tender companionship will be zero. He is made to see that women demand security more than logical, principled, and honorable behavior. So I guess whatever it takes, you can be a criminal as long as you're supporting your family, you're okay. By the time his son must go to war, father, with jelly for a backbone, will slam a gun into Junior's hand before father will risk the censorship, the censor of his peers, or make a hypocrite of himself by crossing the investment that he has in his own personal opinion of self-esteem. So men can't even say these wars are bad. Like Bush said, you're either with us or you're against us. Nobody questioned 9/11. Well, everybody did. A lot of people who did. Some of the eyeball witnesses to certain things died, were killed. Day before 9/11, $3 trillion was missing from the Pentagon. Funny how they can sweep that under a rug with a little disaster. Junior will go to war, and father will be embarrassed. So Junior will go to war, the true purpose notwithstanding. True purpose, we already know all these wars are planned by the Illuminati, which are the Zionists, which are basically one and the same. They just have different names and different associations. The Zionists are composed of Jewish people, and the Illuminati has all the lodges with all the Gentiles, the people who are non-Jewish. They could be Christians, they could be Arab, they could be atheists. I think in the Masonic lodges they do have one exclusion, that's atheism. So it was a big pyramid, and so the Illuminati and the Zionists are one and the same. They both worship Lucifer, so they're all Satanists. They're globalists, they're banksters. And so Masonry, Illuminati, Zionism, and Satanism, Sabbatin, Frankist, which is part of the Satan religion. All this is one and the same. The banks, the control, the people who run the education system. We have been taken over, sadly to say. Jesus is disappearing. All religious teachings are disappearing. And we're getting Miley Cyrus and her type of stuff. The last 3 or 4 Super Bowls were completely satanic. Madonna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga. Olympics, the grand opening was hosted Lady Gaga. Obama, during his re-election party afterwards, inauguration, supplied all his people with entertainment by Lady Gaga. And all this was satanic stuff, like the Bohemian Grove, where all the politicians and presidents have been photographed, where they get in robes naked, they import homosexuals. So I guess they can get a little sick, perverted. They bring in homosexuals. They don't allow women in the Bohemian Grove back then. And then they have a big fire into the Moloch, the demon god, and throw a baby into the fire while they're screaming and singing. And this video's on YouTube. Alex Jones did it. Give you the creeps. So that's why I'm doing these book reviews. I'm trying to do what I can. I know that in Texas today in the news on Alex Jones, they're arresting people for smoking cigarettes. There are a lot of people that are being shot. The police are being taught to react viciously all over the country. I don't know when it's going to happen. This is October 29th, Monday, 2013, and I'm in Orlando, Florida. Rick Miracle. So thank you for listening to my video. I am trying to get the word out that this stuff is not silly. It's not made up. It's real. It's not a conspiracy. It's a plan. Many of us know it. We can't ignore it. That's not going to do any good. But anyways, God bless you. God bless this country. And thank you for listening. And be kind to me about my speeching errors and other mistakes I might make. I'm doing the best I can. All my videos are getting the first take. I didn't do 2 takes or 3 takes. I noticed when I watched them later, there's a date error or something. Like if I meant 1913, I might say 2013 because I'm in the moment, and we're all saying 2000 now. And so, anyways, God bless, and let's try to figure this out together. Thank you.